Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Ian here for another little making of, this time about ELK, episode 2 of BIGTOP BURGER. So I'm going to start by answering one of the questions I got on the last making of about this process. Okay, so the question reads, would you talk more about why you chose this hybrid 3D, 2D method for this project? What's the pros, the cons, and if you're going to keep using it in the future? So I chose this 3D, 2D, I call it 3D for 2D, as in 3D imitating 2D. I chose that for BIGTOP BURGER because it is faster than straight 2D. It is a lot faster. There's obviously a bit of a trade-off where in 2D you can draw more characters and more settings faster, while in 3D every new character is additional work because you have to model them. But if you have a controlled cast that are in controlled, environments that are mostly the same, it's way faster for it to be 3D. And so because I knew BIGTOP BURGER mostly took place in the truck, and there's only so many characters, I decided it would be way faster if I modeled the characters and then you just pose the models. And my test for this was the Austin Powers animation. I made that to kind of try out the method and make sure that it would look sort of how I want it to look. I would say BIGTOP BURGER, in some ways it looks a little better than I thought it would. In a lot of ways it looks not as good as I was hoping, but I did the best I could. And the rest of the question reads, maybe you already see some room for improvement. I do. Some of that improvement is on Blender's end. There's certain features that I use that I think could be improved, and I think they will be improved, but also a lot of it is on my end, and my methods could be altered. I think that's the whole question. So let's take a look at the file, which I believe you've been seeing, yes, this whole time. This is shot 1. We're going to hit play and play it back.
You're listening to...
Well, there it is. So, as you can see, it's a 3D set. The truck is on this road. So this road is... I really just designed this road one time for the opening and then reused it again and again and again for Zomburger and, the beginning of ELK, and that's basically it. And the way the road works, wow, it is big, is, I needed it to, it's always moving. So you can see it's made of different moving pieces that are controlled by an empty, somewhere this empty. And if we zoom in on it, you can see that's the loop. So I just have it loop every time one of these poles matches the position of the next pole, right? Dude, wow, that's a little nauseating to see. This is like a background highway, these are the trees, and they all move in a similar way. And then here's the actual ELK set. Oh my god, the ELK's even there. And, well, that's a mess. I just, to do the beginning of this shot, you can see...
You're listening to...
The whole set pans about twice, and I just found a rough loop point. Right, like this tree comes in front, and that seemed like a good time to switch trees. Where is the switch? That's pretty seamless. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Right, it switches right there, you can see. Surprisingly seamless. I did not design this to be so seamless. I think I just wanted a big tree there and a big tree there. Anyway, I think that's enough in this scene. Let's load up the next one. I think you got the gist. Okay, loading up next scene now. Okay, here we are. So, we have the camera peering into the BIGTOP truck. I talked about this in the first making of, but in order to achieve this type of shot, you need to pull the whole front of the truck off, because as you can see, the camera doesn't actually fit in that space. I mean, it could fit, but you'd have to crank up the what's it called? The focal length. And, or crank down, you have to crank down the focal length to fit the camera in there. And that would make it look fisheye and ugly. So I just, removed the front of the truck. And you can see the, all the other stuff is still here. I just hid the layers. So the highway's still here. The woods are still here. I just hid the layers, and that, collections, I should say, that the collections, I hid the collections. And that just means it'll render faster because it doesn't need to even calculate those. They're off screen regardless, but Blender is going to calculate them if you don't, just, hide them. what else to talk about? Oh, well, first of all, this is the extended version of this shot, I believe.
102.5 Food Truck Radio, where we only play Weird Al.
As you should.
There you can hear the original version of the extended, which is before I came up with the idea to make my own kind of Weird Al style parody of Up. I just played the beginning of Another One Rides the Bus, as you can hear.
As you should.
102.
Just a little bit of it. And I decided not to do that because, for one, well, my one slight worry is that copyright? I don't think it is because it's such a short clip, but my main worry was Another One Rides the Bus. Why that one, right? Like, is there a joke there? Not really. A bus is not a food truck. And so I was trying to think, well, I should try and find the perfect Weird Al song to play here that kind of would be a pun. And then it occurred to me, well, the perfect one to play would be an original one that is already a Big Top Burger joke. So I went with that. Oh, I'll just briefly talk about this. If we switch to material preview, you can see it better. This is the dashboard. So the actual model dashboard, as you can see, is much simpler. It's really simple. And then I just drew this on top of it with the grease pencil, which I think worked pretty well. I'll definitely do that more in the future. I think that's all I can talk about with this shot. Let's move on to the next one. This is fun, just going through one shot at a time. Okay, this shot, I was worried about this one, or, anxious about how is it going to work? How do I execute this successfully? And I think it worked pretty much the way I envisioned it, more or less. All it is, the camera's in the truck. That moves in the background. Ooh, the frame rate is slow in this shot, but... So, I mean, the trick with this is everything's moving so slow, and I really needed time to slow down even more so you can see the elk, because otherwise it just zooms by. But you just have to try it and adjust the timing and see if you can get it feeling a way that feels kind of natural and not too silly. You can see here, that the guard rail blocks are moving super duper fast. They don't slow down at all. It's just the background, but I think it works. Should I talk about the elk model? I might talk about more later, but this could be a time to talk a bit about it. So people who follow me on Twitter will know I modeled a horse a couple months ago for a different project that's still in the works. That's on the back burner. And it was more of like a stop motion style horse I modeled. And when it was time to model the elk, I was just like, I'll just take the horse. So I took the horse's body, I adjusted some of the proportions, and I completely redid the head, obviously to be more elkish. If we hide this, and I don't want to do this, but ooh, you can see that I just deleted the original horse head and made this kind of the fluffy part of the elk, which is kind of what elks look like. I brought up a lot of reference images to try and get their vibe. They have these big lips that are they go out to the sides a lot. One thing I'll say is the elk, the ears are not models at all. It's just a grease pencil drawing. Why'd I do that? I mean, I do any of these decisions by what is easier, right? Modeling the ear, knowing it needs to have an outline and internal lines for it to look 2D or 2D-ish. If you 3D model it, you have to add those lines on top, and it just made more sense. Just draw the lines and then color it in, and it'll look fine. These tufts over the body, this was a pain. You can see them not working here because the tufts need to deform with the 3D part of the model, which means they need to be weight painted. And I was hoping this would be easy. I was hoping if I used automatic weights, they would line up pretty close. But automatic weights don't work right now with grease pencil. It just nothing happens. So you have to paint it by hand, and I painted it by hand, and you can see it's a little messy. But I think it was good enough. Okay, moving on. Next shot. I guess I should talk about why are these separated into individual shots, which is not how I did it for the first episode. And the reason why is because as the sets get more complicated, I needed to be able to remove and disable different parts of the sets when it's not on screen so that these individual shots could render faster. So like for this shot, I wanted to disable everything that isn't on screen, or almost everything, so that I would render a little faster. And also the playback while you're animating is faster, which is nice. As far as I know, there isn't a way to keyframe the on and off of these, which I think is fine. I don't think you need to be able to do that, but that would make it so you could do it all in one file, sort of. Once you turn these on and off, there's a bit of a wait time, though, depending on what is stored inside the collection. So, I don't know. I think this system works for the best, and I believe this is how Blender wants you to use it, is individual blend files for each shot. From my understanding is that's kind of the intended method. You could also use individual scenes, but I don't like working with scenes. Okay, there's nothing to talk about in this shot. I mean, it's a close-up. He's got the burger in his mouth. He goes, okay, next shot. Okay, here we are in the back of the truck. You can probably guess, but yeah, the back of the truck is wide open, so I can get the camera shot. You can see how far away the camera needs to be to kind of frame this. But what I love is, at least for me watching it, and I think most people watching it, you don't think about it like that, right? You don't think like, how is the camera fitting back there? That can't get this shot. You just you feel like you're in the truck, which it works in 2D, and I think they do this even in. I know they do it in 3D animation, but I think they also do it in live action movies, where in order to get certain shots framed the way you want it framed, you have to cheat. You have to remove the wall or do these impossible things, and I don't know, I don't think the audience really notices. So, this is them sitting around. Oh, you can see because these are consecutive shots that don't cut to anything else. I have them all in one blend file, right? I haven't separated these out because there isn't really a reason to. And the whole time there's like, you know, there's like a shaky cam vibe. That's just the camera moving.
People don't get.
Yeah, you can kind of zoom in on it.
People don't get brunch break.
It's wiggling around. And if you're wondering how to make stuff wiggle, if you don't know how to do that, it's very easy to do in Blender. You make a keyframe and you need to go to this menu. This is the graph editor, which if you're doing animation, I assume you know about the graph editor, but here it is. And to make stuff wiggle, you need to select the channel that you want to wiggle. I'm in trouble. Oh, there we go. I was like, is this the right place? This is the right place. There you can see the wiggle. And the way you add that is you go to modifiers with this one graph channel selected, and then you add modifier, noise modifier, and you tweak these settings, and that adds a bumpy noise on top of whatever curves are already there. And so you just need to add that to X, Y, and Z. Didn't add it to Y here for some reason, but whatever. But if you're adding it to X, Y, and Z, you need to change the phase. This is important. Change the phase to any number. Doesn't matter, as long as it's not the same number, because otherwise the noise is gonna be identical and it'll move in phase and it'll look weird. Okay, let's move on to the next shot. The next one is this one.
I see.
There's no sound effects. Why can't we see Steve? Oh, I think I see what's going on. You can see the ghost of Steve here, but I believe this shot just exists so I could get this one render, because I didn't want to render this background over and over and over, because it was kind of, I don't know, it's not like a ton of geometry or something, but the freestyle lines were really slow trying to get all the trees, and slow and buggy. So I decided to just render this shot once and then have it as a back plate for this next shot. So let's load that one. Here we go. So you can see very clearly it's just a back plate. It's just a pre-rendered image, and then Steve is up here in front doing his shtick. Let's go. Yeah, okay. I mean, is there anything to talk about here? I don't think so. I think Steve is parented to the elk's head, because that's the easiest way to animate him. I animate the elk first, and then you animate the thing that needs to follow along. That's generally how you do that sort of dragged stuff in animation. I'm kind of skimming through the shots now, because because there isn't as much to talk about. I could talk a bit about this set. Can I? Okay, well, I should explain these because these look ridiculous. So why are the trees funneling out like this? This was because the trees are actually casting shadows, and in some shots you could see that the tree just came to this little tip, and then its shadow would just, it looked like you could see the top of the tree, there's nothing up there, and I wanted it to look like there was some greenery up there, so I extended that out so they would cast a better shadow. That was basically it. The ground, I painted this in Clip Studio. It's just one big giant drawing that is duplicated over here. Yeah, maybe. It might be duplicated more times than I can't tell. It's a big drawing. The trees are these hideous models. They're not very good. I don't even think I looked up tree reference, which you should never do. You should always look up reference. Never try and go without it. But I was feeling lazy. Oh, you can see this is a big painting. Well, it loops. It's not that big a painting. It loops a lot. And then there's like a ceiling. Kind of a roundabout way to do this, but... Anything else? Well, you can see there's some grease pencil lines being projected on. This was just to add some detail onto the background so it looks a little less 3D. Just some basic lines. Okay, let's load the next shot. Oh dear. Again, I've skipped ahead a couple shots so we can get to this one because I'm running out of stuff to talk about. But this is interesting. Ugh, something nasty's happening here. Oof. But the smoke, I want to talk about the smoke. So, or dust, I should say. It's not smoke, it's dust. The way the dust works is, well, first of all, it's a 3D model. It's a torus. It's a very simple 3D model, and most of the work is done by modifiers. It has a subdivision surface or subsurf modifier, and it has a displacement modifier that is being controlled by an empty. So that's that displacement. I believe the texture is clouds. And the way these really work is this here. They have their own bones. I've rigged the dust. And the way the dust rig works is it's, I believe, just 3 bones. So there's one bone. Whoa. Oh, I see. So this controls the location of the torus. All right? It controls the size, rotation, and location. And as it moves through space, because the displacement empty isn't moving, it's like it's moving through the texture, right? And then this big bone here, this actually controls the empty. So now the torus isn't moving, but the displacement is, and you can rotate it, you could scale it, right? That kind of smooths it out or makes it more crinkly. And then the final bone is here, which doesn't appear to do anything. This is to do with the texture. So the dust clouds use a shader that I kind of referenced from some tutorials and made. Let's look at the shader. Oh, yikes. What to say about the shader? It's not very complicated. It's a noise texture, which is using an object for reference. I think it's supposed to be. Yeah, it separates the noise texture into black or white using a color ramp, so it's these hard edges, and then it makes that transparent. It makes the black part transparent and the white part opaque. And to give it the 2 different colors, I just used the back-facing thing. So the faces that are turned away from you are darker gray, and the one that are turned towards you are more of this tan color. I guess it's more like a light brown. Yes. Oh, so this bone, this actually controls how visible the texture is. And the way you do that is you just take that noise texture and you mix it with black using a mix shader, and you just make it more and more black. And because it'll cut off, it's like a posterization, where I guess binarization effect in art programs. It it cuts off more and more of it, and I think it looks pretty cool. So this is animated in some fashion where it starts small and then it really quickly gets big and then it slowly scales up and it fades out. And we should get one more here. Or is that a separate shot? That is a separate shot. Well, let's load up the next shot then. Here we go. Okay. What's going on? Whoa! I didn't know this. Or I guess I forgot. So I'm sure this was a 3D scene at one point, but I guess I decided to change it into... I rendered it out to a still image, so it just sits in the background like that. And then I guess I painted these clouds on top. So you can see the deer is right up next to the camera. Yeah, right up next to the camera, and the camera's focal length is cranked up, so you get more perspective, you get more of that fisheye effect. Literally one frame. That's kind of the trick I learned with this very snappy kind of anime style action animation, is you need stuff to move very, very quickly and then very slowly. Right, which is kind of it's a thing in Western animation too, the slow in, slow out. But you really need to crank it up. So this is like, you know, one frame, and then he's suddenly up there, and the next frame, then he holds for 2 frames, and then he's suddenly up there, and then look at that, he's suddenly super slow. So it starts out really quick, and you can see by the time he's moving very slow, the dust is actually still moving pretty fast, and then it slows down here. Yeah, it's starting to slow down. There we go. It looks a bit slower here. It's more stable. And this dust works in the same way as the other one. It's pretty much just the same idea, except it uses this ridiculous shape. An elongated sphere, basically, and it has one extra modifier on it called the simple deform modifier. Yeah, simple deform. And all that does is, you know, it stretches it out like this. It screw patterns it, I guess. But there's an extra bone in this dust that controls the what does it control? Oh, there you go. You can see the object's not actually... It's not moving through space, but the screw pattern is. So it's kind of screwing, but it's staying in the same spot. And that was just another way I could animate it to try and, you know, get it looking the way I wanted. So you can see when it first appears here, it should be really squished down. And then it extends out like that. Oh, it goes way less high than I thought it did. Oh wow, that's like a trick of perspective. I didn't remember that, because you know, I imagine that dust being way higher up, but of course it's not. And Steve is way up here, and then the dust slowly fades out. Okay, let's move to the next shot. This one was interesting to animate. My original idea, well, one of the issues with Steve's rig is he's not very good at whoa! Wow. Wow. He doesn't have his hair right now. All I was saying is he's not very good at making him flutter. Like, his hair is kind of baked in, so it's difficult to make it flutter. And his clothes, I didn't rig the clothes at this point in time. I rigged them later for the Zomburger episode. So these clothes couldn't flutter in the wind. So I was like, well, I need 2D elements. Then I need a 2D, you know, corner of his jacket, just because that's what was in the board. You can see the corner of his jacket. And I need his hair to flutter. So my solution was, I'll do some 2D parts on top. So you can see this is a 2D element that flutters. And then his hair, they actually just loop through, like, what is that, 3 frames? I think it's 3 frames. But I slowly move them across his head to try and, you know, as he rotates his head, I don't want them to, like, fly off his face. So I tried to keep them there. And then his actual face, it's not as many drawings as you'd think. I think it's 1, 2, 3 drawings. That's kind of wild. Yeah, I think it's 3 different drawings for his eyes looking forward, his eyes looking that way, and then a slight shift in perspective here. And then, oops, don't go out of the frame range. And then most of this emotion just comes from the fact that he's slowly rotating his head. There's a lot of camera shake, and I'm moving the shimmer bone all the time. So it's, it gives the impression of new frame, new frame, new frame, almost like it's animated on ones. And yeah, I actually quite like how the shot came out. It's one of my favorite shots in the show, I think. I really like how it came out. I don't think it looks super 3D, which is what I was worried it would look. But it's also a little bit more time consuming to do because there's more. Every additional 2D element is more time consuming. Okay, let's move on to the next shot. Here we go. It's dust central. Look at all the dust. It's loading the dust. Okay. So I used all 3 of my dust effects here. You've seen 2 of them, and there's one additional one. So again, this is the same idea, right? Steve is moving very quickly, right? Like that's how quickly he's moving. And then suddenly he moves very slowly. Very, very slowly, and then he moves very, very quickly out of nowhere, right? And the dust effects are as follows. So there's one of the kind of screw type dust effect happening here as the you can't see where I'm pointing, as the ELK kicks. And then this one, which I haven't shown yet, is, I mean, it's the same idea as the Taurus. I just wanted it to have this very thin, flat, kind of winding effect to it. So you can see the geometry of that. It's a cylinder, basically. And, yeah, it just uses the same rig. It scales out and gets kind of wobbly. So, yeah, first is the screw, and then is this kind of wave, and then you have this sort of donut. You see it gets kicked. And then the wave dissipates, donut dissipates, and then here comes one more screw. It's the same model. I just, it's zipped over here. Yeah, there we go. Oh, and this is another example of this. Actually, I was kind of worried with this shot that it wasn't coming out how I wanted. The impact wasn't there. And the one thing I added, which helps a ton, is the camera's completely stable, and then there's camera shake, right? And that changes everything. You got to have a little bit of that camera shake. And then the camera shake, you can see the influence here dissipates. It's using a copy location of an empty, this empty, which is shaking all the time, right? This empty is just constantly shaking. But the camera doesn't copy the location until here, and then it dissipates, and it kind of settles. What else to talk about in this shot? It's the ELK, the Steve. I don't know. Oh, well, Steve doesn't, his hair doesn't, like, flip around at all. His clothes don't flip around. And it was one of those things where I was mentally thinking, like, well, I'll have to do that to make it look like, there's a lot of impact. But with the camera shake and the dust, I just looked at the final shot and I was like, I'm happy with this. I think it would look better if there was some hair shake and stuff. But I was happy enough that I didn't want to go back and change it. So there we go. Let's move on to the next shot. I think this is the last dust shot of the animation. Very simple. Oh, I'll explain this effect because it's pretty distracting. All that's happening is when I'm drawing these background lines on, I'm using project to surface. And I'm doing that because I want Steve to appear in front of these lines, right? So they need to be physically behind him. So I thought I'd just project them on the surface. But as you can see, some of them didn't project correctly. Some of them kind of, they were projecting onto something else. I'm not sure what. But I didn't change it because you don't really notice. So, I mean, you can see here, this line is not where it should be, but I didn't notice, so I left it. Oh, and this also has the dust, but you can't see it. This was something I learned later on, which is the dust was messing with the freestyle lines. And so I realized I actually need the dust on a separate layer. Here it is. A separate collection and a separate view layer. And then you composite the dust on top of the file footage. And that gets around the freestyle issue. Do we do the close-up here? We do. Yeah, there we go. Actually, the This always bugs me when I like the board better. I like this board a lot better because his collar is like up. But because I didn't have his collar rigged at this point, I couldn't get it to kind of stand up like that. But, you know, compromise. Next shot. So the teleport effect is very, very simple. It's a grease pencil object with straight lines that shoot up. And then they kind of shimmer. I think that's 3 frames. Oh, wait, there is one. I didn't even notice. In addition to the line shooting up, there is one smear frame, as you can see, where all that is I've stretched Steve out with the rig, and then he. This was pretty simple to do, right? And again, I think this shot would also look better if there was some flutter in his clothes, but. I did not rig them as such. Where are his arms? So I don't want to look at this. Oh, you can't see. Oh. No! Folks, that was my only solution. That was all I could think of. I shrunk his arm way down. And then this is a grease pencil object that sits on top. Oh, it's part of his face, actually. Okay. And it flips between these speedy hand frames. Yeah. And then there's a lot of camera shake. Gotta have that camera shake. Okay. Let's look at the next shot. Okay, I skipped a couple shots ahead, but this is the one with the cards. You can see some clipping here. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, I can't pretend like, oh, I didn't notice the clipping. I did notice it. I didn't want to put in the effort to get rid of it. At a certain point, I kind of decided the clipping's part of this style. You know, it's an error, but it's an error in the same way when you're doing 2D. You know, maybe a line overshoots another line, and you have kind of an ugly line overshoot effect. And it's just part of the. It is an error of the style. You know, it's just part of the way it looks. So that's why I decided was up with the clipping. Unless it's really bad. If the clipping was really bad, I had to do something bad. But little bits like this, I was just like, whatever. The cards are these. Oh, you can see it's a subsurf, very simple plane. Oh, this is actually an interesting thing. How do you get a card? Oh, and you can see he does have. He has a great hand. 4 aces. How do you get a plane to have 2 different textures on each side? And the solution is very simple. You have 2 different image textures, and then you use the back-facing parameter as the factor in the mix node. And that way one side will have one image, the other side will have another. Yeah, he holds the cards. He throws them on the ground. And you can guess, I just hand animated each card falling on the ground. It was a little time consuming, but it's the best way to do it. And here we can see the elk's hand. I wanted to just give it a bad hand, so, you know, it's pretty bad. Oh, what game are they playing? I didn't think too hard about that. I think I saw someone asking, like, what is that? It's some sort of poker. I mean, they have 5 cards, and it's, you know, you want, like, a royal flush or something. So, I guess it's like a type of poker. Why? Why would I put them way back there? I don't know. I can't tell you. It's not a forced perspective thing, because these are models. You just scale them up and down. It doesn't matter. But for whatever reason... Oh, I bet he was clipping into the horns somehow. No, you can't see that. That's not part of the shot. I don't know. I don't know why I put him way back there. So even when he's bumping his head into it, he's not actually bumping his head into it. I didn't notice in the final shot. Whatever. Okay, let's move on. Next shot. Well, hold on. I want to talk a bit about the shot, because this is one of my other... It's one of the shots I put a lot more time into, because he's moving around a lot. So you can see, normally I don't redraw the eyes that many times because the character wasn't moving their head around much. But for this one, I had to redraw them all the time, right, as his head shifts in perspective. And it was, you know, it was more time consuming, but it was a lot of fun, and I really liked the result. Okay, now that's everything. Next shot. Okay, we're skipping ahead to when Billy picks up the stick. just because I thought this would be a funny little anecdote. This stick is not a 3D model, it is a flat drawing. You know, you have to ask, is it worth it to model a stick? Or can I just have it be a flat drawing and then rotate it so it always faces the camera? Ooh, this shot, oh, this took a while. I knew it would, you know. It's a 4-legged animal running along the ground through space. You know, you can't loop it or something. I guess you could like make a quick animation loop and then have it fly away. I just thought that wouldn't look very good, so I wanted to hand animate it. And this does have IK. If people are wondering, this is an IK rig. So, and all that means for people who don't know that terminology is that when this IK bone is here, even though the rest of the elk is moving. Here's a good example of this. There we go. See, look at this foot here. Wow. It's moving so quick, there aren't great examples of it. But the basic idea is this leg is always going to point towards this spot. And if you move the spot, that's when the whole leg moves. So you just have to kind of move the legs, you know, as it plants its feet. Not a lot of great examples of it here, but you get the idea. Elk runs away. Steve cries. There we go. Next shot. Hold on. Why is some of my process is baffling because I changed the start and end frames to render different chunks of it because sometimes I need to re-render stuff, but I think this shot keeps going because it looks like I animated all this. So, is there anything of note here? There is. Wait, before we leave. So we can see here. I drew this very close shot of him wiggling. And you can see a bunch of these little glitches, and this is actually happening all the time. This is the noise modifier that's on this grease pencil all the time. That's how I get the shimmer effect. But as you get closer, you see this glitch more where the different grease pencil lines shimmer at different rates. So the color is shimmering differently from the lines, which I kind of don't love. I prefer there was an option to like sync them up somehow, but I haven't found such an option yet. But the thing I wanted to say was yes. Okay, so this happens all the time. I kind of touched on this in the first making of, where when I've drawn the face for this one shot, and then I go to the next shot, and the same face is just going to be there because I haven't drawn the new face yet. And so even though this was the board, and I was like, oh, I should try and draw a face like this, just going to the next frame, this face is the exact same face, with the exact same scale. Like, that's how big it is on his head, right? And so the only thing I actually moved was his mouth because, I don't know. I mean, I thought it looked funny. Just leave that same close-up face. I did stretch his head out, of course, to make it more Dorito-shaped, as is ideal. Okay, next shot. Okay, we're basically at the end. I'm not sure what else I'll talk about here, but let's zoom this out. Oh, you can see I did quite a bit of background painting here. I mean, not that much, but, you know, I did touches of highlights and a bunch of black lines, and I think a rock. I added a rock just to make the background a little more interesting. Oh, what a mess! Oh my god. Again, I'm doing that thing I was talking about earlier. Anything to say about this shot? I don't think so. Oh, wait. This is fun. So in the storyboard, right, I wanted to imitate this, where he's kind of poking his head out of the car, but as you can imagine, that's impossible in any normal way, so you really got to stretch him, because I need that part of his body to look like it's behind this, but I need his head to look like it's in front, so, you know, there's a lot of stretching that happens there. Can we just isolate Steve so we can see this? Thank you. There we go. Yeah, okay. And I do that a little bit later with Jason Ray as well. Anything else? No, I think we're good. Okay. So, I believe that's all I wanted to talk about with the visual aspect of the episode. Now we will cut to me talking about the sound design right now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Foley section of this ELK behind the scenes. Okay, so let me load up the video playback so we can get some context. Here we go.
You're listening to 102.5 Food Truck Radio.
Okay, so the first element. Well, I'll briefly talk about this. This is the car driving sound. You can hear this. Oh wait, hold on. There we go. So you can hear there I have an EQ. So this is like the outdoor version of the sound, and then you EQ it, remove the high end, and it sounds more like you're in the car. And the car driving sound itself is a combination of a low rumbly synth for the engine, which you can kind of hear. That, and then this kind of wheels on rock gravelly sound, which I believe I used a bag of beans, I think, and I like crinkled the beans, something like that. Yeah. I might have also used these actual rocks. I'm not sure. It might be beans and rocks. And then for the radio sound, so this is the recording sent by my friend Tyler, my good friend Tyler, who voiced the radio announcer guy for Food Truck Radio. And doing a radio sound is like, it's very basic audio processing stuff. You do it's mainly EQ, right? It's very heavy EQ. You remove a lot of top end and a lot low end. I also have delay on it, but only for this one part, right?
You're listening to 102.5.
That feels very, I don't know, that I quite enjoyed doing this little radio part because there's so many kind of over the top tricks that radio DJs use, like the delay and stuff. And there's also this like this boom sound, right?
Listening to 102.5 Food Truck Radio, where we only.
And then the guitars.
Truck Radio, where we only play.
That's just, I don't know, a riff, and I double tracked it so it would sound a little thicker. Oh, and I will say, this was the original line. This is the dialogue that I sent to my friend Tyler was, you're listening to 102.5 Food Truck Radio, where we only play Weird Al. And that's the line that he did a bunch of takes of. And when I was finally putting ELK together, I was like, this doesn't really match the pacing of the way I boarded it. I kind of had it much quicker. And so I was like, I guess I'll cut the Weird Al line. It's a bummer, but whatever, it still works without it. And then when I was making the compilation episode, I was looking for places to change the pacing, because this feels a bit sudden when you come out of Stove, you know, the very end of Stove with the It's July, and then suddenly it cuts to this. It felt too sudden. So I added a little bit of silence.
You're listening to.
Maybe I didn't add the silence here. I've added it somewhere else. But there's a little bit of just driving sound, and then he starts talking, and then there's the Weird Al bit. So,
Weird Al.
As you should.
Well now this won't line up. Okay, maybe I'll just close the video then, because it isn't even going to line up. Because the render was for the episode version, not the expanded version.
I just don't see how there can be a brunch rush.
So you can see I just turned the volume down on the car driving sound.
A brunch rush. People don't get
in the back, farther from the
brunch
engine.
breaks.
Maybe they're having brunch for lunch. Huh?
But it's 9 in the morning.
Ooh.
This is one of my least favorite sounds that I did for BIGTOP Burger in general, which is the car stopping sound. Folks, I just struggled. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, how do I make it sound like the car has come to a stop? This is what I did.
Ooh.
I mean, it's one of those things where I think it only works because you're watching it and you're not paying attention. You're just like, well, the car came to a stop. And she says Uber here. But if you hear in isolation, it's just like, what is that sound? Is he like bumping into a tree? I don't know.
Ooh, we're here.
This wonderful door opening sound, I use it over and over. That's from my Hanna-Barbera sound effects package that I purchased. I try not to dip into it too much because they all have kind of this low fidelity, old timey sound to them. But there are just certain sounds that I can't really recreate here in my room, and like a big metal door opening. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out, so I thought I'll just use this. It sounds great. There's the typical Dewey. which if you've seen my old making ofs, you know all about the Dewey.
I thought we had like 15 minutes.
Oh, the elk. Here we go. Where is the elk? Hooves. Let's hear these in isolation. Oh, that is too much reverb. Who's adding that reverb? It's going to be one of these. How did I do the hooves? Let me think. So I believe, if I remember correctly, I got a piece of dirty old cardboard. I put it on the ground. I put my shoes on. And then I stepped on the cardboard. My line of thought was the cardboard was kind of dusty, with like grit on it. And so I thought it would sound like I was stepping on dirt, kind of. And cardboard naturally has a kind of loud, crunchy sound to it. And I think that was it. It sounds pretty hoofy, though. I wonder if I did something else. I don't think so. I think I just kind of stamped my feet, you know?
Steve!
That sound, I don't think I have it on the desk with me, but it's a bell. It's a cowbell, and I just rattle it, you know?
Steve, buddy, what are you doing?
Getting meat for the burgers!
Now, Steve...
That sound, that one took quite a few layers. I believe I just call it whoosh here, but it's rocks. It's these rocks. Wait, can you see these rocks? And I what did I do to the rocks? I remember. So my idea was I wanted shoes against rocks because he's like scraping against the ground. But I didn't want to put rocks on the wood floor and then like step on them. That seemed like a bad idea. So I thought if I put the rocks in the shoes and then just shake them around or scrape the shoes against each other, you would get the rocks bumping into each other in combination with the shoe sound. And I think it kind of worked. This sounds bad.
Burgers!
Now, Steve...
There's some like effect being turned off when I solo it. Sorry about that.
Now, Steve, we have plenty of good meat in the fridge. Have it on meat.
Oh, Steve.
This let's listen to some Easter eggs. There's some hidden sounds here. What are they?
Have it on meat. Have it on meat.
Oh,
So there's like a poof sound. I got rid of that.
Have it on meat.
It's like a rock sound. Got rid of that.
Have it on meat.
Another rock.
Have it on meat.
I mean, you can hear it. It's just too much. It needs to be more subtle. Just and then some swishing clothes.
Have it on meat.
Oh, Steve, you can do it. Get that meat.
Don't encourage him.
I like those sounds. That's again, it's something to do with the rocks in the shoes. I think I should put the rocks in the shoe, shake the shoe. I saw a YouTube comment about this. I forgot to mention it in the first making of. This is a completely generic FL Studio sound called Piano Nightmare. Yay! Listen. So when I was working on the first episode, there's that joke where, you know, Penny makes this like face and it's like doom, doom. And I was trying to find a sound that I thought was funny. And, you know, I just took a peek through the generic FL Studio special effects sounds, and I got a big laugh out of it. I'm like, what a funny sound. It's like, oh. So I used it again here. I brought it back because we didn't really have a reason for bringing it. There we go. That is loud. Let me turn this down. Sorry if it's been a bit loud. I have my mastering cranked up too much. There we go. So this is squee is what I've labeled the sound. It is a synth sound effect. I'm very happy with this one. This is one of my attempts at like an 80s anime sound. I programmed it in Citrus. Let's take a look at it. So you can see this is the volume of the sound. It starts very loud and then it gets quieter. Does anything else happen to it? Yes. Oh, a lot of things. Okay, so there's a cutoff. It uses a band pass. Oh, yes. I found this out. If you want that kind of swishy sound, you know, like dramatic, like getting hit with like a sword kind of sound, you want to use a band pass. And then you want to tweak the resonance, and that will do stuff. So you can see it spikes here, and then it slowly fades. It's hard to explain a band pass, right? A low pass is very easy to explain, and a high pass is easy. But a band pass is it's sweeping through the frequencies, sort of. So it goes It goes. There we go. If that makes sense. It's a wind sound. This is again a synth. This is actually, I think, the same wind sound I used in Palpatine's journey when he's falling down the chute. Ooh, this one. The main sound is SFX Crush Explode, an FL Studio generic sound, and then Doom. Let's listen to Doom. It's a synth sound. And then I have two scooshes here. Let's listen to the isolated scoosh. Sorry, that's shook. I need scoosh. There we go. These are all labeled with great intention and thought. A lot of thought put into the labeling. There it is, scoosh. It's a synth sound. It's noise. I don't know. I kind of explained synth sounds like this in the Palpatine's Journey video, I think, but... Ooh, wait, there's little, like, bone crackling sounds here. Now, that's usually you do bone cracking with celery. That is actually my hand. I did that, but I like did layers of it.
You're pretty strong.
What is this? That's him hitting into the tree. That sounds pretty heavy. I'm not sure what that. I think it's me hitting into my chair. I'm like banging in my chair or something. You can hear the chair creaking a little.
You're pretty strong.
Should we help him at all, or?
ELK looks jacked.
Here's the elk stomping along the ground. And you can see I originally had even more, right? I had this. It seemed a bit goofy, a bit synthy for me, but, you know, I want it to be like, pooh, 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 it's pounding. And then there's three scooshes and 2 teleports. So the teleport sound, I actually had somebody on, I think on Patreon, asking, where did you get that sound? I want to use it for a thing. And so it's based on a sound from Dragon Ball Z, the instantaneous transmission sound. It's, in my opinion, one of the most iconic anime sound effects, as well as one of the most iconic sound effects ever. I just love it. I always used to call it wee woo, wee woo. It goes wee woo, wee woo. So I tried to recreate here with a synth. Did I use a band pass? I did. I used another band pass. It's a very versatile effect, and you can hear it in isolation. Oh, I just love that. It has some reverb on it and some EQ. I removed the high end because it was a bit pointy. And then it's used in combination with that scoosh sound from earlier, so it goes like whoosh, whoosh. This sound,
Steve,
I've labeled it fists 1, 2, and 3. This is just me punching a pillow as quickly as I could. And the trick is you have to layer them. It also sounds I've bass boosted it, and then I made it crunchy with some saturation in a compressor. So that helps us sound a lot, is give it more bass and make it a little bit distorted. I mean, it doesn't sound like the coolest punching sound in the world, but it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be a little bit feeble.
Steve, we're missing the brunch rush, man.
4 aces.
This is one of the most interesting parts of sound design for me, is like when to add musical cues and like how do they change the feel of that shot. And so for me, I wanted the vibe to change here, because before he was fighting and now he's playing cards, so there needs to be a vibe change. And just a very simple guitar lick, a kind of jazzy, bluesy riff.
Man?
4 aces.
I think that covered it. I think that kind of, it changed the vibe for that shot.
You lost the moment you entered these woods.
I guess I'll do something.
Careful, Billy!
That's picking up the stick. These sounds are also very interesting to me because they're very subtle, but you need some sort of sound there. And oftentimes you have to, like, the real life sound would be even more subtle than that, and so you need to play it up. I believe I used this flute, and I grabbed it.
Get out of here, you.
It's like a hand on wood sound.
You noble creature.
Go back!
It's a pretty decent gallop sound. I believe that's the same method from before with the shoes and the cardboard.
Creature.
No! Go back! Michael! My son!
That was very important to me. Again, music, little musical cues change the vibe. So I wanted to play this without the musical cue so you could hear it. Okay, it's labeled guitar here. It's a concertina. It's which is like an accordion basically. And you can hear it without the concertina. This is how it originally sounded.
My son!
See, I don't like that. That made me sad. It's too sad. And even the original voice take, this one, is even more sad. Listen.
Son.
Okay, it's a little funny, but this was the one I went with. I was playing it back. I'm like, it makes me kind of sad. It doesn't feel funny enough. So I thought some sort of musical thing would help. And so I played this rather sad concertina line, but it's like sad in a cartoony way, you know, like
My son!
it's almost a little bittersweet. And I thought that really helped sell this joke, which is one of my favorite jokes in ELK, where he's like, my son.
Weren't you trying to eat it?
Billy, my girl! Hurry! We mustn't miss the brunch rush!
Oh, and then this. Okay, so you gotta have a clown horn sound, or what is called horn bulb here. I did not have one. I might want to like purchase one on like eBay or something so I have one. But for this, I was just like, surely Hanna-Barbera has me covered. Let me look through, and they did.
Okay, hold
There you go, a fantastic kind of clown horn sound.
hold on.
Okay, I believe that's it. I believe that's the whole file. Let me just sweep through, make sure this is something I missed. No, I think we're good. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about any of the process, hit me up, and I'll either answer them here on Patreon as a reply, or I'll save them for the next making of for kid. Okay, bye everybody. Bye.